All right, Brad, you ready for some baseball?
I'm ready, man. We've been in baseball mode for a while now, but this game tonight just kind of feels like hype. Even though it doesn't
Doesn't mean
matter for
anything.
either team, it still feels like hype, man. It's been talked about all day.
And so the game that Brad's talking about, but actually by the time a lot of people listen to this, it'll be
Yeah.
it'll be done, which is
Yeah.
the Giants are playing the Team USA for the World Baseball Classic in an exhibition tune-up game for Team USA. The This was one of the games where I was like, could I get to Arizona during this week? It didn't work out. I couldn't go. And then this weekend when the game started, I was like, can I get to Arizona? It didn't work out. So unfortunately, I'm going to miss everything WBC. It's so crazy that it's happening somewhere where I have pretty good access to get to, but didn't
Yeah.
work out. I will be at a spring training game in next weekend, so I will have some thoughts on some real live baseball for the first time in a little while. Are you excited for the WBC? We've been talking about it. We've been hyping it up. We've been saying we're going to cover it. And then finally it was here, and it wasn't here in the most spectacular way. It was like, yeah, if you're awake on the East Coast at 11 p.m. at night, you can watch some Netherlands, Cuba. But
Yeah.
for us, it was on, at a normal time. I was working a
Yeah.
little
eight
late last
o'clock.
night. I threw it on, got to see a couple of runs scored in the background, and I think me and Grant Brisby were the only two people alive or awake at that time who tweeted about Chadwick Trump's bloop single to score a run.
Yeah. What time was that? Because I woke up and I saw it. I saw your text, and I
Yeah,
was
it
like,
was like,
"What time?"
gosh, it must have been like, let me think about this. It's probably like 9:30, 10 around that time.
Yeah. I think I was already asleep. We're trying this new thing. We're trying to stay healthy for our trip coming up to Disneyland
There
here
you go.
in a week, and just in general, as we get older, we're trying to stay healthier. So, we get up at 5:30 during the school year because we both have to go to work. We've got to get the kids up and everything. So we're trying to go lights out at 9:30. We can read, Kindle read, whatever
Yeah, there
else,
you go.
but put the phones down 9:30 for us, for the adults, the kids, they're going to do what they're going to do. But they just have to be quiet. That's the only rule. But 9:30 lights out, read the Kindle, and I get about 3 pages in and my eyes are I'm already fighting it. And it's working good. So the last 2 nights I've gotten close to 8 hours of sleep. So
No, that's great.
yeah,
And
it's a
plus
we're
because you
trying.
also have to wake up pretty early though.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Now, during the summer, when the kids don't have to get up, we don't have to get, breakfast, get them out the door, get them ready, all that stuff. If I'm working from home, I can get up at 7
Yeah.
because I don't start work till 7:30, so that's no problem. So I can stay up later and that's not going to be an issue. But during the school year, man, it's all, and especially with all the snow we've had, driving conditions. I've been leaving as early as possible to get through all of this stuff. And yesterday, spin outs everywhere on the
Mm.
freeway. So we were all going 30 miles an hour, just cruising along, listening to my jazz like an old head. So I was having a good time.
So the World Baseball Classic, there are two results on the board right now. I actually had this up and then I somehow I lost it. But like I said, the Netherlands late last night beat Cuba. It was 4-2. So they are in, which pool are they in? They are in Pool A. And then also in Pool A, Panama beat Chinese Taipei. That was this morning. They beat them 12-5. And there are two more games tonight. So FS1 and FS2, again, by the time people listen to this, the more than likely those games will be done. Australia and Korea, and Panama and the Netherlands. So the two teams who won yesterday. Now, Korea is one of those teams who, I was reading The Athletic and they had their picks of all the writers, who's the favorite to win it. Almost everyone picked Dominican Republic. Well, I think one guy picked Japan. But then they also had, they knew the Dominican is stacked. Who's your sleeper team? there was a Korea and there was a Netherlands. So those are two teams to keep your eye out on in that pool. And yeah, the U.S. does not start till this weekend. So by next week's show, we should have a good idea on how Team USA itself is playing. But I thought it was really cool. Ken Rosenthal had a piece this morning, just little nuggets about the team and head coach DeRosa. He was talking about how it was kind of weird. He hadn't put a uniform on for 10 years. And he's putting the uniform on and he's like, wait, I don't need wrist tape. Wait, where are my batting gloves? And he just said it was like, it kind of reminded him of like, one of those milestone moments in your career. He said it felt like that. So I thought that was cool. I guess Goldschmidt, the last year's National League MVP, he gave a little bit of a speech for the team. And yeah, there's some interest there. Now they are not favored. It is again DR. I think Japan probably maybe even a little bit ahead of them, at least amongst the prognosticators. But I think they're going to be competitive, man. You got Trey Turner and Mike Trout on the same team. We had talked about this. Their starting rotation is kind of it's actually really bad if you think about it. But
yeah,
the way that the WBC works, these are all bullpen games anyway. So
right,
they just need to get out. They don't have Marcus Stroman to carry them like he did 6 years ago, the last time he had one of these. So, what excites you about this? Is there anything specifically that you're looking for? Because I think the problem with this is, we don't have like Team USA pride. Well, we have a little bit of it, but it's like,
yeah.
If the Dominican Republic or Team Japan wins, it's like, oh, cool. Like these teams are good. These teams are exciting. This isn't like Rams 49ers or anything, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for me, what I'm most excited for is that it's early March. And I've said this before. I get very excited for the fact that it's early March and it's exciting, emotional baseball. There's just going to be a lot of emotion on the field. We saw in the first game last night, Cuba, Netherlands, tons of emotion. I mean, guys, even after a walk, bat flip, get over to first base. One thing I'm not excited about though, people are going to hate me for this. I kind of missed the pitch clock last night. I know it's funny to say, but I kind of missed that pitch clock a little bit last night because in between pitches, guy on the mound, just step off, and then the other guy steps out of the box, and we gotta wait around a little bit, and then the guy steps in the box, and then I would step on the mound. You guys get the signs again. Now I would step off, and I was like, hey, can we move this thing along a little bit? Let's see some baseball. Let's see some action on the field. And that's what the pitch clock has done. But I think what you were saying too is so in FIFA, you got the World Cup, you got your country. I mean, if you're a Barcelona fan and you live in Spain and you love Leo Messi, who used to play for Barca, but you're Argentinian, you even have more of a rooting interest because Messi plays for Argentina. And you're super excited when the World Cup comes along. Doesn't matter where you are, it's where you're from when it comes to that. Now, when it comes to the World Baseball Classic, us here in the United States, if you're a Padres fan, you're rooting for Xander Bogaerts in the Netherlands.
Right.
You're rooting, you've got your rooting interests kind of all over the place. And if your favorite team has 6 players from a country, well, guess what? That's probably your team because you want your players to succeed. You want to see your players win, get a taste of that win. So when they come back to spring training and go back, out and the regular season starts, you want them to have a taste of that W. Us, on the other hand, we got 2 active Giants, Major League Giants on 2 different teams. I'm not Team Israel. I'm not Camilo Duvall is pitching where now? I honestly,
I think he's on the DR, isn't he?
On the DR, yeah. So with the DR, that's one thing I'm bad at. I'm bad at as a Giants fan. I'm bad at knowing where guys are from. Like I couldn't I couldn't tell you what college Jock Peterson played for. I only kind of remember that Brandon Crawford is a Bruin, right?
Yes, he is. A
Okay,
Bruin.
and it's because he played with Garrett Cole. But other than that, I'm terrible with that stuff, and especially even in football, I'm absolutely horrible. My brother-in-law can go down the entire Rams roster blindfolded and tell me where every guy played college and maybe even high school, and I'm like, yeah, can't remember to put my left sock on after my right one. But yeah. Anyways, so when it comes down to it, we're Team USA, and I think that's just because we like our lineup. We like Mookie Betts. We like Trout. We like
The
up and
only
down.
time we'll ever root for Mookie Betts in for the entire rest of his career, unless he gets traded.
Exactly. I loved him in Boston. Now I hate him, but I want him to win the next 11 days. But that's pretty much it. So
Trey Turner still has a little bit of Dodger stench on him, but we can root for him now.
Well, yeah, but he's a Philly.
Yeah.
So you go from the Dodgers to the Phillies. There's not a whole lot of redemption there.
Yeah. The brotherly love.
Yeah.
This will be a fun tournament, and I think the other thing that, and you mentioned some of it, but you just kind of root for non-injuries.
Yes,
you're like, oh,
100%.
Duvall's 104 mile an hour exploding sinker. He shook his hand on that one. We need to get him out of there. So it's that kind of thing too. Where it makes it a little bit different. I don't know if you could do it in a different way where it is like the World Cup, because that is sort of the end all be all, and the end all be all for these guys is the World Series. So a little bit different, but I'm still pretty pumped up, and I'm glad that we're going to be focusing on it pretty closely for these next couple weeks. So, all right, let's actually talk a little bit about our team, the San Francisco Giants, as they are in spring training. And I had a question for you, and we'll use this as technically our second topic here, which is the Giants have a lot of new players, but they also return a lot of players who in 2021 played some pretty good baseball, and then in 2022 really didn't play as good of baseball. Now, I'm not talking about someone like Thiago Estrada, who I thought was, a pretty consistent guy of what we thought he could be. Obviously, Logan Webb was, all-star type of year for him. But what about a player who last year may have been a little bit of a disappointment and is in need of a comeback year? If I phrased the question like that, who would you put your money on to have a really, really good year?
So I struggled with this one. I thought I had it in the bag. I was like, oh, I'm going. My number one pick is DeSclafani. All right. So I go and look at his numbers. He had a really good year 2 years ago. So I was like, well, he kind of already broke out. So I can't go with him. A comeback player, absolutely, because of the injury last year and the surgery.
I mean, I think it's a good one because there's going to be some expectations on him because he missed all of last year after signing that 3-year deal. So I can see why you pulled back on it too.
Yeah. So and then I looked, and then my next pick, who I ended up not going with, also was JD Davis, and I thought, well, he's gonna, maybe this is the year. Well, no, he had a year where he played 140 games and hit like 20 plus home runs and hit close to 300. So I thought, well, he kind of broke out there too. And again, came to us, split the season with the Mets, not so good with the Mets, pretty good with us. Gonna hopefully have a nice jump and a good year. So I settled on Austin Slater. 30-year-old
Very
Austin
interesting
Slater.
pick.
Yeah, and the reason I picked Austin Slater is because from 2017 to 2022, he's never played in more than 129 games. This could be that season he busts over that mark if he stays healthy, and it's because the Giants, he is the only Giants true center fielder on the roster. So he's going to get a lot of play in center field. Started to hit righties last year. He can hit lefties. We know that. He's got in 2020, he had an OPS plus of 151, but that was only 31 games. So I'm not counting that as a breakout season because you can't have a breakout season in 31 games. I don't care if it is a short season. I don't care if it's an 80 game season, 60 game season, whatever it is. Still not truly a breakout season. I think if he's healthy, he could probably be a 2020 guy. I'm going to stretch it a little bit and say if he finds a power stroke, he could be a 25-25 guy.
Wow.
I don't think he could ever reach that 30-30 mark, but I think he could steal 30 or 40 bags this year with the new rules. So that's going to be exciting in itself. He's probably, I think he can hit 275. So a 275 season, 20 plus home runs, 20, maybe even 30 plus stolen bases. Great, not great, but above average defense in center field. Arm is a little suspect. But I think that for me, that's my breakout player. That's the guy I'm hitching my wagon to this year. Last year, it was Tyro Estrada. I was all on board and still on board with the guy, but I'm adding another one to the stable this year, and that's Austin Slater. And I think he's really just going to have a breakout this year.
He hits lefties really well.
Mm-hmm.
But he also gets on base a decent amount against righties, from what I remember.
Yeah.
So I do, maybe that does mean he is not replaced or only comes in against lefties. Maybe he does have the opportunity. And like you said, he's their only real center fielder. Yaz can play there a little bit. Conforto can play there a little bit. But if he hits, he may get all the number one reps out there. So that's something to think about. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, mine. This is a sad one for me because the person who I'm picking is replacing Brandon Belt at first base. So when we first fell in love with late night Lamont, he kind of just came on, power, clutch hitting. That 2021 season, he was a giant surprise for the Giants, and it was like, oh man, this Farhan is a genius. Where'd he find this guy? And so then he gets hurt at the end of that season. He doesn't really know what the deal is with the injury. He's like, I don't know. I'm feeling it, but it's not like I can just stop playing right now. We're in the playoffs against Dodgers. And he just gets hurt and he's playing hurt. So fast forward to the offseason, and the Giants, they do not have any communication with their players because of the lockout. Lamont Wade Jr., he's like, you know what? Now, this is the part where I'm not really 100% clear about, because if it was me, I know that I would have gone to a doctor and asked for some opinions, and I'm sure he did that, but it wasn't clear what the opinion was, so he just decided to rest it. So he comes back last year, and he thinks that, maybe the rest and the rehab is going to be fine with the knee, and it wasn't. Like, he just blew it out. So he's finally back. He's finally healthy. And really, I'm kind of cheating because he only has to improve on 207 with 8 jacks and 26 ribs. Like, it's not that hard for him to do better than that. But if he does become a little bit more like 2021, that is a shot in the arm for this team. And remember, we were talking about this over the offseason. We're like, it's fine. Conforto, Haniger, Manea, all these guys on these 1-year deals, or 2 years with a 1-year opt-out. Who are the Giants gonna, who's gonna be the jersey that your kid's gonna want to buy? What if it's late night? What if Lamont becomes that guy? That would be a nice story for this team, I think. And he's gonna be playing some. He's penciled in as the first baseman, so he's gonna have all the opportunity in the world. So I really want to focus on him, and I might even look online and see if I can find some autograph cards or something on the cheap, and try and get them on
boost
the cheap.
Them up a little bit.
Gonna blow up.
Well, and that's the thing. That's a tough pick though, because in don't forget, in 21, he got an MVP vote.
He did, from Baggerly.
So in order for him to have a breakout year, doesn't he need 2 MVP votes?
Yeah, I mean, he's really like. The way that I see it for him is he also has the opportunity to really become a fan favorite with the fan base, because there is now a void of fan favorite type of players. Brandon Belt is gone. So you have Crawford, and you have these new guys who are going to take some time to settle in, Logan Webb is still a young person himself, and I think he wants to become that face of the Giants rotation kind of guy. But there is a nice opportunity for Lamont Wade to pop in and just be like, "Hey guys, like this is who I am, and I'm a really good baseball player, and I want to be a face of the franchise here." There is that opportunity for him. And the other guy that I think is kind of interesting to maybe not become that, because you don't really see it out of relievers, but just become let's continue to advance this Twins storyline. I want to see a lot of Tyler and Taylor, and
Yes.
maybe they're the new Belt and Crawford, right? Maybe they're the new goofballs, or at least the twin stuff can always be fun. So I want to see a little bit of the Tyler Taylor stuff. And I really think that Taylor is going to be some benefit. He's going to be for us what Mac Cheese was for a little while, but he couldn't do it last year, especially the righty lefty combination coming out of the pen. I think is going to be very vital to this team's success too. If you can sneak some games because of having lights out 8th and 9th innings, man, I'm all for that. So, and then maybe Tyler throws a 7th. You got 7th, 8th, and 9th locked up. He can also have a bounce back year, right? Because 2021 he was amazing. 2022 he was a little bit more normal, and then he could bounce back in 2023. So
he was normal, but a lot of his outlier numbers, a lot of his metrics and everything were kind of in line with 21. I think it was just some
the outcomes weren't as
the outcome. The
nice.
defense was rough. Everything was just rough in general for everybody across the board. So
rough, and including Darren Ruff trying to chase balls down the line.
Poor guy.
All right, let's talk about what we're drinking really quickly, and then we'll move on to a couple of other topics. I bought now you mentioned how you and your wife are trying to stay healthy for your trip. My wife has been following some of the intermediate fasting that I've been doing. Nice. And so she's been following that, and she's been being a little bit more consistent with her Apple workouts. And she's lost like 5 pounds in a matter of like the last 3 months. And I was like, okay, like I really need to start working on this because my knees are so bad. But there's a little bit of a thing where chicken and egg thing where I can't work out as hard as I want to because of my knees, but it'd also be better for my knees if I took off a little bit of weight. So I'm in this like weird thing where it's really hard. But one of the things is, before we started dating, she used to actually, right in the early days of we started dating, she used to make fun of me because we'd go to the movies and I'd have just like this giant Coke Zero. And she's like, how can you drink that much? And I was like, well, I've only allowed myself to have a Coke Zero when I'm at the movies. Anytime else, otherwise, I don't drink any soda. And so then, you get in the relationship, and now you have, 2 incomes, and life is a little bit easier. And all of a sudden, what used to be a treat is just kind of like now just what happens. And so I realized, I was like, man, yeah, I do drink a little bit more soda than I did before. So I'm trying to cut back on the Coke Zero. But for this occasion, because this is not the movies, this is the podcast, because we have our drink, I purchased Coke Zero Move. They have some limited edition, like interesting flavors. There's like a little strawberry-ish taste to this. Yeah. So I just got the Coke Zero, this Move Coke Zero. I put it with some Johnny Walker Black, and it's kind of like a Coke Zero highball.
I like that. When we were in Disneyland too, I had the choice of Coke, Diet Coke, Diet Coke, Coke Zero, and we were at Knott's Berry Farm with one of the meals, and I got a Coke Zero, and I forgot how much I enjoy those. But I'm more of a Pepsi guy. I like the Pepsi. What is it? Pepsi One, I think.
Yeah. Pepsi Max.
Yeah, but now I'm so much into Zevia now that I don't drink much else. But yeah, when you're there at the park, I was like, ooh, Coke Zero. Haven't had that in a while, and not a problem. Drank that whole thing.
There you go. All right, what are you drinking?
Yeah, so I've got. I kind of went with the old standard. I haven't had this in a while. And I was kind of in the mood for something other than bourbon. So I went with Uncle Nearest, the 1884 small batch.
There you go.
93 proof, and just a slug of that is pretty much all I need. Because when we were in Disneyland just this last weekend in Knott's Berry Farm, they had some good beers on tap. So I was hitting up those good beers, and 2 beers a day, because you get later in the afternoon at the park, and especially because we only had one kid with us, and it was dance competition, so she was off with the rest of the dance team, and they're going on rides, and so it was just Denise and I in Disneyland by ourselves all day long for the first time since 2005.
There you go.
So we went a little nuts. We were like, oh, let's have this. And so in Disneyland, I had 2 beers and a Manhattan, because they have a nice restaurant there, nice Italian restaurant in Disney California Adventure. And I had this really nice chicken parm with spaghetti. And I was like, I'm going to have a Manhattan with that. And it was a Buffalo Trace Manhattan. And boy, did I taste that Buffalo Trace. They did not skimp at all on the bourbon. It was definitely there.
That sounds great. So Crystal decided to book a trip for the spring break for the kids.
Nice.
And she got an Airbnb for a couple of days. So we're going to drive out to LA, and we will do the Disneyland. The kids have never been to Disneyland.
Oh man.
So we're going to do Disney.
We're in for it.
We're going to do Disneyland, and we're going to do California Adventure. She thinks that the boys will like California Adventure a little bit better than Disney. And I'm like, I don't know. I just want to see Star Wars, man.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is, if you can get on Rise of the Resistance, they're going to want to go on that. We rope drop that. So that's when, the park opened at 8, but at 7:30 they open the gates, and they let you go in front of the lands, and somebody's holding an actual rope. So it's called rope drop. So at 8 o'clock, they start, at 7:59, they start talking over the loudspeakers. Welcome to Disneyland, blah, 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 blah. They have little sound clips. And then you count down from 10. Everybody counts down. Then they drop the rope, and you go to the rides you want to first.
Oh, wow.
So everybody headed off, and we went to Rise of the Resistance. We waited 30 minutes, and that's it. The rest of the day, that ride is like 90 minutes to 2 hours.
That's tough.
So you rope drop that right away. Go do that. They're going to get on that ride, and they're going to freak out, because it is the most intense ride. Not like scary intense, not like, loops, or it's a trackless ride. You're in a car, but you are in a starship.
Yeah.
And you're trying to escape the starship, and Kylo Ren is chasing you around the starship.
Oh, man.
It's an absolute blast. So
that emo dude is chasing us.
He is, man. With his emo voice the whole
time. One shout out to a restaurant that I was at this weekend called the New Belgium in San Francisco. Brian and I hung out there to watch some Warriors before, and then our buddy Ben Cruz and Brian and I we met up there before we had an event, and so some friends were in town, and I was like, let's meet up at the New Belgium. It's right across the street from Oracle Park. Everyone can see it and find it. And so we hung out there for a few hours to watch Warriors and Lakers, and we ate and we drank. And they don't have a liquor license, I don't think. So it's just beer and wine. But yeah, get a couple glasses of red of some cab and chill out and watch some Warriors. So that was fun. So shout out to New Belgium.
So that's New Belgium Brewing Company.
Yeah.
So tap room and restaurant. I just looked it up. They're the ones who one of their first beers, their flagship beer, was that Fat Tire. And they did that years ago, and I had that a couple times. It was too malty for me. I wasn't too big on the malts, but they had some other ones that were really tasty stuff. So yeah, good place.
All right, let's finish off the last 2 segments of our show. We're going to save the analysis of the outfield situation. I know you did some research about that. The one thing I wanted to mention is you put a note down that Alex Pavlovich, because I had tweeted, or I'm sorry, I texted you over the weekend. I was like, when are the Giants going to be on TV? What's going on? How come I'm hearing about all these other teams on TV and there was none for us? So he said, he tweeted out, tonight is the first of 6 spring broadcasts. Also 312, 319, 323, 326, 327. And then there will also be 5 games that are streamed by NBC Sports and the Giants. So I don't know what that means. Does that mean it's not on the actual cable channel and you have to use their app to watch it? I was a little bit confused about that. He's at 311, 315, 318, 322, and 325.
Yeah, after I put that in there, I was like, I'm not 100% sure on that because, like, right now, the game is on MLB Network and it's also going to be on NBC Sports Bay Area. So now I don't know if it's going to black out on MLB Network and we'll only be able to watch it on NBC Sports Bay Area. But
so that game is on NBC Sports tonight?
It is, yeah. And it doesn't show it in the Giants app. It just says KNBR.
Huh.
But yeah, it is on the NBC Sports Bay Area app. If you go, because it's on the app and it's also on the channel. But I'm just, I'm on the computer right now and I go to NBC Sports Bay Area and it does show that you can watch it. So it hasn't gone live yet unless I think they often have issues on their website. And a lot of issues. So trying to get there now and it's not quite getting me there, but at least we could have something on MLB Network tonight. So
okay, so when we talk about the outfield, I'll mute myself and I'll turn to my Hulu app and I'll try to bring it up.
Okay,
if it comes up.
Cool.
Okay, so one of the other things you want to talk about was the idea of Casey Schmidt making the big league team out of the spring. Now, odds are against him because the aforementioned JD Davis plays a little third base. Wilmer Flores plays a little third base. And they have another young player who broke the minor league franchise record for home runs in one season in David Villar. And Farhan said very early on that it's kind of like it's Villar's job to lose.
Yeah.
Casey Schmidt is a much higher prospect in the organization than I think Villar was. Villar kind of snuck up on some people. And he's a dynamo on defense, sort of unsure about his bat, but he's got all the options in the world. So it would take a huge change in opinion from the Giants organization to say, okay, this is going to be our guy. Because if you bring up a prospect like Casey Schmidt, he's got to play because he does no good on the bench. You might as well just send him back down to AAA. So I know this has kind of been one of your things this spring and I think it just has to do with the fact that you're just chomping at the bit to see this guy play baseball. So, yeah. But what are your thoughts on that? Because it does sound like it is sort of he's on the outside looking in here.
Yeah, so I'm going to break it down just real quick. And Grant did a really good article about how can you see Kyle Harrison, Casey Schmidt, and I can't remember who else, but how they have a chance to possibly make the team. I think it was Von Brown. How they have a chance to make the team this season. And so my short answer is no, we're probably not going to see Casey Schmidt out of the gate, but he is creating a stir and creating a conversation in spring training because David Villar is 0 for 11 with 7 strikeouts in spring so far. So he's only had 4 at-bats where he has not struck out. All the other bats he has struck out. He has not gotten a hit yet. So I know they want him on the roster coming out, but he does have options. That's the thing. David Villar does have options. JD Davis probably has an option or two, but he's already almost got 5 years of service, and you will not see him get option. He's hitting 273 this spring. He can also play first base. So when you need a right-handed first baseman in your lineup, he can go over there and play first base for Lamont Wade Jr. But the fact that you have Casey Schmidt, who's hitting 467 in spring so far, an 867 slugging percentage, and just a phenomenal glove. And the Giants have said they need to get younger. They need to get better with the glove. That's your guy right there, Casey Schmidt. They just don't have room for him at the moment. But you can see now it's a very clear picture as to why they did not re-up Evan Longoria. They didn't even go into that, thought process of saying, hey, maybe we'll bring him back. Maybe we'll get him through half a season. We'll trade him. We'll release him. We'll do whatever we have to do. But you can see why, because again, Casey Schmidt, David VR, JD Davis, and Wilmer Flores, if you need him. But I would like to see Wilmer Flores, and I would like to see Jock Peterson primarily stay at DH.
Yeah.
I don't want to see in the field too much if we don't have to, because if we do, something has gone horribly wrong. Not only on the major league roster, but also in the minors in terms of development of players. Something will have to go terribly wrong for that to happen. So I could see a situation where you get 2 months into the season, VR is not doing it. So what you end up doing is bringing VR down, bringing Casey Schmidt up. Casey Schmidt has only played in 3-4 games in AAA, so he doesn't have the experience, but he got 500 at bats in A+ and AA last year. So, it's just a matter of getting him a little bit more reps in AAA. He came out of the gate in AAA last year when he did get his opportunity and hit over 300 to hit a home run. So, he can play there, and his defense could play at any level because we've seen him in spring training so far with the glove. But I do see a situation where David VR, the first month of the season, is just not cutting it, and they have to bring him down, and then they bring Casey Schmidt up. You still have a little bit of a logjam at third base because you got JD Davis, you got VR, and then you could have Casey Schmidt. So is there a chance they move somebody like JD Davis? Probably not, because at that point you've got Schmidt and Davis. Maybe you move VR. That it's a good problem to have, because when we look at the outfield in a little bit, it's kind of not a good problem to have in the outfield, but to have this problem at third base where they didn't have it just 2 years ago is a fantastic problem to have.
I wonder if, so I was listening to Ken Rosenthal the other day, and he got a call, or they got a call, and it was a voicemail, and the guy basically said, with everything we know about analytics today, why is there a spring training where a player can beat out another player in the smallest of small sample sizes of practice baseball? That was kind of the question.
Yeah.
And Ken Rosenthal was like, I get where you're coming from, but just know that more than likely these teams know exactly who they want to make that squad from before spring training even starts. Which makes Farhan's comment about VR very interesting, because he almost said, brother, this is your job to lose, and thus, if you don't play well, you can lose it. I think he's going to make the team. I think he's going to be the starting third baseman for April. And then you sort of look at what he's doing. If he's not hitting, is he playing defense? If he is hitting, what's the defense like? And then you watch Casey Schmidt and you go, okay, is this guy ready? Because if he's ready, I don't think a David VR is going to be in his way. I think you're going to, like you said, maybe move him, or maybe he gets reps at second, and, injuries could always change everything. But that is my thing. I think if he hits, they're going to find a spot for him to play. Because you also have the DH, and if you have both of those guys on the roster, then maybe it's a Wilmer who's not there, even though we know Wilmer's going to hit decently. So I'm excited to see what their plan is with him. But like if VR continues to struggle, that you can't, like, the confidence level going into the season can't be great if he's going to continue to struggle. So I hope he turns it around, because I think that's sort of the plan. But it's an interesting idea, and it's fun. We love prospects until they don't play very well, and then we go, Joey Bart, overrated.
Exactly. And the Giants aren't necessarily in a place where they have to rush prospects. They were, 81-81 last year after a famous 107 win season. So, if the Giants win 90 games this year, it's an improvement. If they do it with just a handful of prospects, a couple of prospects here and there, 2, maybe 3 who come up during the season, then they turn their eye to 2024 with adding through free agency, and then your prospects are even more ready because they had more time to season in AAA. You're in a good situation. If the Giants have to rush prospects up, it's and not have to rush, but if they need to get them some playing time in the majors, it's usually because you're not doing so well. So I think the Giants are in that situation where, there doesn't have to be a rush at this point, but it is a little bit alarming. And we'll look at it again next week. But VR going 0 for 11 so far with 7 strikeouts. That's, you'd like to see a little bit more at this point in spring. A couple of knocks, some walks, anything to kind of get things going. So it is a little concerning.
Yes. All right, so let's talk about your analysis on the outfield and what they're going to do there this year.
Yeah, so I wanted to get your opinion on this too. So looking at the Giants outfield and their active roster of outfielders, I didn't put Steven Piscotty in there because I'm not really looking at guys who are on minor league deals, who are non-roster invitees to camp. I'm kind of staying away from that a little bit. DeSclafani hit Mike Trout.
Oh no.
That is not good.
Yeah, while you're doing this, while you're getting set up,
Yes.
I think I will turn on the game over on my side.
Okay, cool. So I mainly looked at who's on the active roster. So these are our definites to make the team in the outfield. You've got Yaz, you've got Conforto, you've got Haniger, you've got Slater, and you've got Jock. That's 5, right? That's 5 outfield. There's not room for anybody else. But if Jock is mainly a DH, you can look at this roster and say, okay, the Giants can use a 5th outfielder. I'm not counting Lamont Wade Jr. because we've already heard that he's going to be playing first base. Can he play outfield? Yeah, he's going to play a little bit of outfield, but I'm not thinking he's going to be a primary outfielder. So I'm looking at primary positions. So I'm looking at those 4: Yaz, Conforto, Haniger, Slater. That's 2 lefties, 2 righties. Then you've got, okay, if we want to have a 5th outfielder, you've got Luis Gonzales, who's hurt. Not going to see him for a little while. You've got Elliot Ramos, a right-hander who's had a bad spring so far, also a bad last season in AAA. And then you've got Luis Matos, who is young, has no experience above the AA level. I don't even think he has experience over the A level, now that I think about it. I have to look into that one more time. But so the Giants outfield situation looks like that. They're gonna so then you start looking at the Piscotties, and you start wondering, can we add Piscotty if we need to at that point? But I wanted to get your opinion on a situation like that, where you've got Yaz, Conforto, Haniger, Slater. If you need a 5th outfielder at that point, do you give that shot to Ramos? Because right now they basically can't afford to have anybody get hurt
right
at this point of spring. If anybody gets, and the reason that's brought up is because Slater did have that MRI on his shoulder.
Right.
The Giants thought, oh, maybe there's a situation here. It turns out no structural damage, just needs some rest. He's okay. Everything's going to be fine. So if somebody did get hurt, where do we turn at this point? Do you start looking at trades? Do you start looking at, again, Steven Piscotty? Is that a guy that you can add to the roster? But then you've got a 40-man situation and I think they have one spot open on the 40-man, and they also have Luke Jackson, who they can put on the 60-day because he's going to need longer to get ready.
Right.
So that could free up even another 40-man spot at that point.
Yeah, that's interesting, because the other part of this is that Luis Gonzales is hurt, and that he would be a guy that they could turn to. I guess Ramos having a shot, that has got to be based on, like, they didn't like the way that he looked last year for sure. I can't imagine that he did either. It was a giant disappointment for him. And but he's the guy who they would probably turn to, right? Like, who else is in that AAA, that zone of players who they could turn to if it's not him?
You know what? Honestly, I don't know if there's anybody else who would at this point be ready. If I'm looking at the 40 man, the other outfielders on the 40 man are, and again, you could get creative. You could say, well, Jock's going to have to play some outfield. Lamont Wade Jr. is going to have to play some outfield until they can figure out the situation. But when I'm looking at the 40 man at this point, all those names I read off to you, that's the 40 man roster for the outfield. They really don't have anybody else. Tyro Estrada can play a little bit of outfield,
I guess. Maybe you could have VR grab an outfield glove.
VR could probably play some outfield. I'm not sure. Didn't we see Wilmer out in the outfield once or twice last year?
Oh, Wilmer's poor legs.
Yeah, that's nothing we ever want to see again. So that's the situation with the outfield. It's a little troubling. It looks good on the surface because, again, Yaz, Conforto, Haniger, Slater. I'm happy with that. That could be a very good outfield. But if anybody gets dinged up, and you've got 3 guys on here with a history of injuries, so if anybody gets dinged up, you're looking at Jock Peterson. You're looking at Lamont Wade Jr., who's very serviceable as an outfielder. Lamont Wade Jr. We don't want to see Jock there, though.
So the outfielders who are not on the 40 man, who they invited to spring training, Von Brown, Clint Coulter, Bryce Johnson, Steven Piscotty. So those would be the guys, who you'd have to find room if you decide to bring up. And speaking of late night, he just lasered a shot off the wall to start the game for the Giants, but he hit it so hard he only got a single.
Oh no. Oh yeah, we got a runner on first. There we go. And Mitch, we're gonna come up with
hitting in the 2-hole.
Yeah, there we go. And there's a laser to right field off the wall.
Damn,
nice. Look at that, back-to-back shots off the wall. Hold up, Lamont Wade Jr. Hold up. Got nobody out.
Yeah.
Are the Giants gonna beat Team USA?
First inning.
So speaking of Coulter, he's been around. He's 28 years old.
Yeah.
And he's been in the minors for a very long time. And he's hitting 133 this spring, just 2 for 15 with a triple and 4 strikeouts. I mean, I would turn to, I'm sure the Giants would too, turn to Piscotty way before they even look at Coulter at this point. But again, I don't want the Giants to get in the situation where it's like, like it was last year, where you get an injury to an outfielder, you get an injury to an infielder, and you're just looking at warm bodies. I would love to see the Giants be in a situation where they can count on somebody like Elliot Ramos. And at this point in his career, in his minor league career, the Giants should be able to count on Elliot Ramos. And I think he knows that too. So hopefully things turn around a little bit for him this spring, because they are not off to a great start.
A cool little note here. John Shea tweeted this earlier tonight. I guess the Giants, some of their minor leaguers, since this is in Scottsdale where the Giants play, just in case they need to fill in for the Team USA guys, Will Jensen, Carter Aldretti, Ryan Walker, those guys are dressed up in Team USA uniforms just in case they need some subs. If Team USA needs some extra subs, they got some stars on that team. These guys want to play 9 innings. They're going to 5 and dive and be out of there. They'll be fine. So that's a little cool for those guys to be dressed up in that Team USA jersey.
And I wonder when Team Israel plays, because Jock is in the lineup tonight. So Team Israel that pool must be in the United States if he's playing for the Giants tonight. And there's
because
he's ground ball to the right side.
He's hitting right now. Israel, are you sure Israel plays tonight?
No, I'm just saying in general because I know a lot of these teams are in pools that are across the pond, and in other countries. So what I'm saying is, Team Israel must play their pool. I think they're in Florida, actually. Now that I
Yeah.
think about it.
So
So
Israel doesn't play until the weekend, I believe. So
yeah, so they must be in the United States because um, Miami versus Team Israel was today.
okay, so
And
you're talking
so
about the exhibition game. Got it.
yeah, I'm talking about that, and also when they actually
I
play
don't think
their
they play
first
until
game,
Sunday.
and their pool is here, right?
They
They are
play
Miami. Okay,
yeah. They play Sunday, yeah.
that was just my confusion because I know like
Nicaragua.
Cuba, Italy, Netherlands, Panama, South Korea, Japan, Czech Republic, Australia, they all play in Tokyo and Taichung.
You
So
know,
that's
now I think they've done a much better job of sort of making sense of how the tournament works and where everyone's playing,
yeah,
but I still feel like they need to do a better job. Like, we should know where these teams are playing, who's in what thing. They should be publicizing
yeah.
this. The schedule should be easier to find. It shouldn't just be one website by Major League Baseball. Like, somebody, maybe the social media is better, and I just am not following the right accounts. But
It's
man,
not better.
so
It is
yeah,
not better.
yeah.
Here's
Um,
Wilmer. Ooh, swinging from a knee.
that's a Wilmer. That's a classic Wilmer cut. That's how I know
Absolutely.
Wilmer's dialed in, is when he goes down to a knee.
He is in regular season form, man.
All right. I think we can cut it a little bit early this week. We don't have to go the full hour.
Cut it
And
early and go watch some
go watch
baseball.
some baseball. Yeah. Hopefully,
Yeah.
Giants can add on to this 1-0 lead as we watch in the bottom of the first inning. But yeah, we'll be back, and we'll be talking more. Uh, what was I going to say? I was going to say something about Hot Take Brian. Now I forgot.
Uh-oh.
But yeah, there was going to be it was something baseball related, anyways.
Well, and your other boy saw a former Giant today.
Yeah, he saw him at the airport, Matt Cain.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And
SFO.
that led to my question, like, what? You're in town? How come you didn't tell me you're in town?
That was classic. When you said that, I died. I thought your kid's in town. He didn't tell you what's going on here.
Because you know why he didn't tell me? It's probably because he had no intention of like hanging out. Like, he's gonna be in, and he's probably gonna go see some friends, and he's gonna be
Come
back
on,
out.
JJ.
And he
Come on,
had no
JJ.
intention, so that's probably why. All right, so we'll be back next week. For Brad, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.
Peace.